I'd like to actually tell a story, something real that happened to me. And this was on one of my past trips to India. And I don't care what anybody has to say about India. I've had a lot of incredible spiritual experiences here. Vivi was actually with me during this time. And we had gone to an event. It was some sort of conference. And they had a bunch of keynote speakers, and we were watching everything and doing our own marketing and research while we were there. And this was in the southern part of India. Vivi would know the name of the exact place we were at. But there was a particular man that I met there. And I was telling him about Guruji and the incredible science and all the research that we've done, that we're proving the existence of God. We're showing the miraculous powers that come through enlightened consciousness. I'm talking about all these details about the experiments with living organisms and non-living materials, up to these clinical trials that we've done. I'm sharing all these different things that I'm sure he has never heard of before. But this man, he was so intoxicated. He didn't want to leave. He just wanted to keep talking. And he said, "Can you show me a picture of him? Can you do this? Can you do that?" He's like, "This is beyond my comprehension, beyond my understanding." And he was so infatuated with the idea that this could be real. Because his entire life, he had been looking for something like an experience, a real authentic experience that could be handed to him. A divine experience, a spiritual experience. One of those moments where you experience samadhi, or one of those moments where you experience, the wondrous lights and sounds and angels, choruses, and all those different things that happen to you. And we left that night, and we were actually supposed to meet with someone for breakfast the next morning. And when Vivi and I went to breakfast that morning, we sat in this beautiful breakfast area, and right along there, we see this incredible view of the ocean and the sunrise. And we're sitting down, we're having breakfast, and we're waiting for this person, and this person doesn't show. He never shows up. And then lo and behold, a few tables over is that man again, looking for that spiritual experience. And he sees us sitting there, and he comes right over and he sits with us, and he, just wants to talk because they're about to go sightseeing and exploring everything, but he just wants to talk a little bit more. And so I talk more, and I start to share my story and my experiences. And then he brings up something where he says, because my experience, it's coming from a place of this incredible ecstasy and love. Because that is my vision of God, is this ecstasy and this love. And he was saying, maybe what I'm going through, because I haven't experienced anything like that. I haven't experienced any spiritual experience, but I believe that a guru, a master, can really do that for you, can bring that to you. And we kept talking about the science and the experiments, and he wasn't interested in any of that. He just wanted to hear about the experience. He wanted to have that experience. And then he brought up something else. He said, there's this saying in Vedanta called neti neti and iti iti. He's saying, people share all these experiences, of God, all these experiences that they have, these visions, these wondrous things. But he's like, but how much of that is actually God and how much of that is a delusion? And we started talking, deep into philosophy and theory and all these different things. But the irony of that moment is right after that meeting, he left and he was still ecstatic and waiting to meet Guruji. And we left that meeting. And I knew that we were at that breakfast just to meet with this man and to talk with him. And as we were leaving, we were packing up the car, we were, making sure everything was ready to go. And we were going to do our own sightseeing, our own touring. And one of the places that Vivi had interested in taking me was some place called the Vivekananda Rock Memorial. And I know very little about Vivekananda and all these, saints. I know some about them. I know that he was a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. And I know he was, an incredible, Vedantic monk, enlightened monk. And supposedly the story is that he swam to this island for, his final moment of awakening, for his enlightenment. He swam to the island, meditated there until he finally became awakened. And so, part of the sightseeing was like, there's not much else to do here except to see the beach and to, visit this temple, visit this rock memorial. And so the whole point, we were just traveling a few hours to see this rock memorial. And a few hours into the car ride, we got a phone call from the hotel. And the hotel said that we had left something behind. There was something that was left behind. I don't know if there's something at the front desk that Phoebe had forgotten. Sorry, calling you out, Phoebe. And it was too late for us to turn around and go back. And so we decided that since the hotel was on the way back to the airport, we would just drive over tomorrow. And we arranged a time where we could drive over, maybe we'd have dinner at the hotel because BB is always concerned about, the white Americans traveling in India and what kind of food we can eat. So he's like, we'll eat at a good hotel that has safe sanitary food. So he was arranging everything. He's like, okay, so we'll come back here, we'll have dinner, we'll pick that up, and then we'll go right to the airport and catch our flight back to Mumbai. And so I'm like, all right, that sounds good, no problem. And so we're continuing our journey, and then we go to the Vivekananda Rock Memorial. And as we get out of the car, we're walking over, and we see this huge, massive line of people. And I'm wondering, oh my goodness, are we going to have to wait in this huge line just to see this temple or this memorial? Or to take a boat, we have to take a ferry to reach the memorial. And it turns out that this line was for, a cheaper ticket. And there was another expedited one that was just a couple hundred more rupees. So we got to bypass the whole line. But it really kind of put into perspective, like, wow, the limitations of money and its freedom in your life and your capacity to do things. It really can have a dramatic impact. And so it got me thinking deeply about consciousness and money and freedom and all these different things and limitations. And I'm like, wow, that is fascinating. And we got to, get on the boat. We're getting ready to go on the ferry. And if you've ever had an experience of waiting in line and trying to get somewhere first in India, everybody just comes together and they start pushing you and shoving you and getting out of the way. This time it wasn't that much pushing, but there was a huge crowd of people. And Bibi and I somehow made our way onto the boat. We somehow got a seat. We got these life vests on us. And we made our way to the memorial. And there are two places on that memorial. There is the rock memorial for Vivekananda, and then there is another temple there, and it's the foot of Parvati. It's the foot of Parvati. It's where she did her devotions for Shiva because she wanted to marry Shiva, right? And so she performed her devotions and meditations there because she wanted to marry Shiva. And as you know, Parvati is the manifestation of Shakti. Shakti being the divine energy of the universe. It's the moving energy, the actionable force of life. That we are alive, what moves us and animates us is Shakti. It is this life force energy. And then we have, that unmovable mover, right? We have Shiva laying down in the universe, at ease. No, the absolute reality. Beyond definition and form, the unmoved mover. And so we visit the Parvati temple, we go to Vivekananda, and we're walking around this memorial, and I'm walking around, and one side of the rock memorial, it's completely still. There's no wind movement or anything because the temple itself, the memorial, is blocking the movement of the wind. And we go around to the other side, and the wind is whipping so wildly and so strong that when Bibi and I were trying to take pictures of each other, all you could see was my hair covering my face. We couldn't take any good pictures at all. It was wild, just untamed, wild nature. We saw, one side, the waves are crashing and thrashing against the island, and the other side, the waters are still because it's not being influenced by the waters, by the winds that are coming in. And as we were gazing over, you could see there's one point in which these oceans merge and they combine together, and it's considered a very sacred spot. But this ocean and this sea, they actually mix together. This is the exact point where they come together. And you can see it like the different colors in the water. You can see these blues and these greens and, these other colors that kind of stand out and are distinct from each other, and the moment in which they all merge and converge together. And it was such an incredible experience, and I loved every moment of it. It was just beautiful. And we got back in line. We took the ferry back home or back to the other mainland. And then from there, we got in the car and we found our hotel. And Guruji ended up calling Vivi, and he said, there's a specific place that I've been to here that you can see the sunset and the sunrise, right next to each other. Right? Different times, but it creates an incredible light show with the ocean and the sky. It's a very beautiful spot. He's like, take Dahryn there so she can see it. And so we end up finding that spot after checking into the hotel. We go there, we drive there, and we stand there and we watch the sun start to set. And we see the wonderful mixing of colors where it almost looks like the sky starts to mix into the water and you can't tell the difference between the two, and these orange clouds everywhere, and it was just beautiful as well. And then we had dinner, went to our hotel, went to bed. And the next morning Guruji said, all right, now I want you to go to the sunrise spot. So we started doing everything in reverse. We woke up, we had our breakfast, and we went to the sunrise spot. We went to the whole crowd of people trying to look over people's heads to see the sunrise. And it was in that moment where I looked over a few people's heads and I was looking at the sunrise, and the sun rose right in between Vivekananda's rock memorial and Parvati's temple, right in the middle, in between. And I was looking at that same spot where those two oceans converge together, that same spot where you have Vedanta, which is the absolute nothingness, right? The absolute reality. And then you have Parvati right next to Vedanta, the Shakti, the movement, the action of the universe, and all these things coming together. And I'm like, oh my God, what is happening right now? And so I'm witnessing all these things unfold, and I'm like, we're being taken on an incredible journey, aren't we? What's happening today? It's like it's the exact same replication of yesterday, but in reverse. And so we went to the sunrise spot, we went to our hotel, we checked out afterwards. And from there, Vivi was like, well, there's not much else we can do. You know, we have a lot of time before we need to go to the hotel and take our flight. He's like, do you want to go to the Rock Memorial again? And I'm like, it wasn't my recommendation, but it sounds like we're going to the Rock Memorial again. And again, we go there. We see that long line again. We come to the express line. We're on our way to take the ferry to go to the Rock Memorial the second time that day. This time it's a very different experience. This time there's a lot more people who are pushing, who want to get onto the ferry, who are shoving each other and knocking people out of the boat and fighting over these life jackets to go visit the sacred spiritual spot. And they're like viciously fighting with each other for their own moment of auspiciousness to worship the sacred. And so having people push this old man who's trying to get on the boat and he's too slow, so they're like pushing him to the side, and I'm just like, hey, and I'm like standing there like a rock, like, don't push anybody, I'm getting on here. And so we somehow wiggle our way onto that boat, and it's chaos, and the whole vibe is different amongst everybody. And we go there, but it's the same island, it's the same winds, it's the same ocean, it's the same temple, it's the same memorial. Also a wonderful experience. We get back on the boat, we come back. People are fighting to throw off their life jackets this time. And we make our way around. We get back in the car and we start driving to the hotel. And it's a few hours away, and we start driving, and suddenly we get to the hotel and Vivi picks up whatever he left. And we're going to dinner. We're going to, you know, find a place to sit and have dinner. And we ended up going out into that same breakfast nook that we had breakfast before. And this time, instead of the sunrise, bright in the morning, we're seeing the sunset. And we're seeing it set over the ocean, and we're seeing all these waters, and I'm seeing all these lights from these boats that are far off in the distance. And it's the most profound experience. The ecstasy that builds in my heart. And I just said, oh, I get it. I get it. Netty, netty, itty, itty.